Part 3, baby. Hope you're still enjoying your Monday. There is on the back side of this kind of Matt Tario, kind of a religious point, but I want to answer the question here. Biblically, being that I'm a Bible college guy, even though I swear a lot, but let's just hit play. Let's go with it. Here we go.
Equipment. And this is the problem, ladies and gentlemen, that the American people end up having. Not to mention, I just explained to you how dismantling this entire network does more for Ukraine than sending a bomb, which they're still receiving. And yet, we have people in the chat that are complaining. Over what? Words? What means more to you, words or actions? Now, do you think Trump can come out and state outright, hey, bro, we are removing Iran so that freaking Ukraine doesn't have to deal with Russia anymore? We're tired of Russia screwing with Ukraine. We're tired of Russia embarrassing Trump. We're going to remove the Ayatollah. We're going to wreck the regime. We've got a great excuse. There's no better time than now. They've got and admitted to having enriched uranium. They backed out of the JCPOA. They freaking backed out of the NPT. Why wouldn't we do this and get rid of them and stop this crap? Why? Why wouldn't we get rid of Hezbollah benefiting the United States of America, Venezuela benefiting the United States of America, making sure that freaking foreign terror organizations aren't getting diplomatic passports and coming to the United States of America? Why aren't we going to take care of that and at the same time take care of Iran that's been terrorizing the Middle East? That, by the way, you want to talk about what really has affected the UK? The freaking shipping lanes in the Red Sea when the Houthis shut them down. And you know who's behind that? Iran. You know who that benefits? Russia. Because their oil was sailing through scot-free. Again, if you want to start talking about like whether or not the United States is actually doing anything to help out the Ukrainian people, I highly suggest you dig a little bit deeper. Do I wish we were doing more? As a personal belief, yes, I do. Do I wish we were providing more material support? Absolutely. Do I also recognize that the majority of American people don't want to do that right now? Yes, I do. And I happen to live in a freaking constitutional republic and respect that. However, you can't sit back and say that Trump hates them because we just lost U.S. service members to rip this freaking crap out. So don't sit here and tell me that the United States isn't helping. Like, absolutely we are. Now, Iran's internet. Oh, dang. Iran's internet should be back on shortly. This is now the second building I've seen targeted that they are alleging was responsible for the internet blackouts over inside of Iran that you guys heard the foreign minister stating that was turned off for a reason. This is apparently one of the buildings that's blocking all of that, so that's all getting taken away. It's gone for them. It's gone. It's gone. It's gone. It's gone. The free account says Qatar does not have LNG pipeline. No, they don't. You know where that comes from? The refining process. You know what ends up happening when you take the freaking everything else? Like, you can go get your liquefied natural gas from somewhere else. And by the way, why would you blame the United States for that? Last I checked, wasn't it your leadership, like the UK's leadership, the EU's leadership, that decided to go towards LNG and start relying heavily on Russia for that? Isn't that what happened?
We're almost to the part here that I was talking about, but I want to talk for a second on this. I brought it up in the first video. The LNG stuff, LPG, LNG, whatever the hell it's called, it's a byproduct of oil being produced. I mean, you can just specifically find natural gas, but it is a byproduct of oil producing. You literally get it for free. It's called flaring. It's literally called flaring. Like when you drive across an oil field at night and you see those torches burning, they're burning natural gas. It's called flaring. And America's different from Europe. We got 50 individual states with a federal government overseeing everything, right? So, as long as the 50 states don't supersede federal mandate, and in a lot of cases, oil is a state issue. A lot of states like North Dakota, who are very forward thinking when it comes to energy, they've long ago captured flaring at their oil fields in the Bakken oil field, because it's natural gas. And then they tank it and they ship it around and it gets used for heating and all kinds of stuff. We got so much natural gas that just this year, the governor and the entire session in North Dakota, right now, there's a company that won the contract, and they are going to be building pipelines from the western part of the state to the eastern part of the state. It'll probably eventually go to places like Minnesota, who have massive populations. But that's natural gas, not oil. And where's it going? It's going to do all kinds of things. It's going to help farmers dry corn, right? They'll use it in drying corn during harvest and stuff. They will homes will use it when they're hooked up. They'll have natural gas heating in their homes and cooking. My point is, Europe could be doing this for free if they didn't intentionally tie themselves to Russia. And that's what Matt Tario is actually saying here. Okay, let's listen to this.
Huh? By the way, what prevents Tehran from freaking holding the EU hostage when they decide to shut all that crap off? Maybe you think that maybe some of your policies might be affected. Maybe that's why the UK is over freaking Islamified right now. Why you have people shutting down your streets with freaking prayer rugs. Do you think maybe the Iranian regime might have something to do with that? Or does your guys' hate go so deep that you can't see that maybe we ought to not be angry at the people that are dealing with this situation because we don't like the way it's going down, but be angry with your leadership for relying on such a stupid product, and be angry and coming from freaking Russia in the Middle East, and be angry at the men that were doing this crap. Live Animal says, Israel says it'll strike Iran for 3 weeks. Trump says he'll wrap Iran issue before talking to Cuba. NATO backing out from sending ships. Iran allowing ships to China and India. It's de-escalation. No.
It's funny he brought that up, Matt Tario, just briefly. Over the weekend, I don't know if you noticed this, but Cuba started to have protests in it because the nation essentially now is starved for oil because they're not getting oil from Venezuela anymore, and America kind of has a semi-blockade around it. They're just basically not getting much oil unless it's domestically produced. It's a whole nother thing. So, while Americans and Canadians are crying about gas prices going up over there, they're actually just running out of gas. And so, once again, the other unintended consequences of Trump's actions, and yet at the same time, it's something that's been known for years and years and years, and Trump just happened to be the guy that pulled the trigger and actually did something, is that without even militarily doing anything to Cuba specifically, if the uprising comes big enough, it could just absolutely wipe away the communist regime in Cuba and move automatically towards some type of, I don't know, democratic republic or some type of, I mean, they're so used to welfare systems in Cuba, free healthcare, free this, free that, right? Nothing's free, but you get my point. But they're so used to it, so they might, like, if there ever was free elections to change their way and constitutions and shit, away from like Fidel Castro type stuff, maybe they would land on the on the map in the form of like a Western European country, a socialism democratic government, basically. But what I'm saying is the unintended consequences of starving these nations of oil, which I talked about in the first video, is automatically, regardless if they knew what the outcome would be or not, and they do, it's because the world, once again, uses petrol. It uses oil. It doesn't use sunshine. It doesn't use wind. It uses oil. So what I'm saying is, it doesn't matter what you do. If you're in any area where major flows of oil come out, you are going to dramatically harm the world in certain ways. Pain will be felt. And my point is, we're seeing that over the weekend in Cuba. There was protesting, people catching buildings on fire, shit like that. Why? Because they've run out of petrol inside of Cuba.
I've actually got a video on that here in a little bit. Iran is obviously allowing, what do we say, China and Asia. Yeah, remember who they weren't targeting over inside of the Red Sea? Does that sound oddly familiar? Iran tried negotiating this weekend with the United States for the oil, and they tried stating, we'll let all the oil freely pass through the Strait of Hormuz, but you got to trade it using the yen. You guys don't think that's odd? That Iran says, we'll allow everything to flow freely through the Strait of Hormuz. We'll allow all that oil to go, but you got to trade it using the yen. Remember how they're... Oh, I have to explain this because I didn't talk about it. China lent a buttload of yen to Venezuela and Nicolas Maduro. He was repaying it with oil. The U.S. sanctioned that oil, and we started capturing those ships, particularly ones operated by the IRGC, cutting off China from freaking Venezuela. They were printing off money left and right, trying to support Maduro. Their repayment was in oil and gold, and they just got cut off. And now Iran says, trade it using the yen. Why? Because they printed off so much freaking yen, it's way overinflated. You guys, I'm telling you, man, like I swear, there is some surface level thinkers in this world that need to do some leering, need to do some serious leering. Whew, buddy, I can rage. All right, what do we got here? We got Moab gifting out 5 Speak the Truth memberships. Thank you, sir. Thank you. And under Moab there, we got Live Animal. IRGC is using new Supreme Leader's name to avoid appointing an alive Supreme Leader whom Israel will target. They're using him to prolong their career. Yeah, well, that's just it. With this new wounded Supreme Leader, he was wounded on the 28th and flown out of country into Moscow. So if he's wounded on the 28th, they knowingly voted in a guy that was incapacitated. He can't possibly lead the country incapacitated in a freaking hospital over in Moscow, nor would people follow him. And so they've been printing off freaking orders up in the regime, trying to pretend like this guy's in charge. So the real question...
I would like someone to tell me in the comment box with real facts, is he actually unincapacitated? Because that's different from being injured in a bomb attack or a missile strike, right? You could be injured, and be in bad shape, but not be like, say, on life support, incapacitated, right? It'd be nice if someone could find some real hard facts on that from reputable sources, because I will say, Israel, they've been kind of ballsy from day one on this idea about the new Supreme Leader, the son of Khomeini, okay? Saying that they themselves hit him in a missile strike or an air strike, right? They've been pretty ballsy on this from the very get-go. Like, as far as they knew, he was either dead or injured. And then America, over the last week and a half, kind of hand-hauled around, kind of basically more or less saying something similar. Well, we think he might be in the hospital or was injured, but we don't really know, and blah, blah, blah. And now he's in Russia. I mean, like I said in video 1, that's not surprising. So let's I want to make my religious point here in a second because Matt, I think I already missed that part from Matt Tario, but let's listen a little further just in case I'm wrong. Hit play.
Is like, who really is running that country? That's not going to make it any better. As soon as that information starts going more mainstream, like the U.S. needs to do a better job about putting that information out. Israel needs to do a better job about putting that information out, because the moment that information goes mainstream, I mean, idiots in the IRGC are going to be like, who the hell are we even following? Like, who's giving these orders? E-Man YouTuber says, thanks for speaking the truth. Yeah, of course, brother. Yeah, it's what I try to do, and I lose people over it all the time. FXRel, criticizing over Ukraine having an NABU is U.S. citizens don't have any equivalent. Wasn't saying U.S. doesn't help Ukraine, just that Trump's stance is ridiculous. Well, there's face value, and I tried to explain this before at the beginning of last year after Trump came into office, when they had the argument in the White House. And I told you guys, wait. Oh my Lord, they cut off intel sharing. They did this, they did that. And none of you have thought any deeper about that. Why it was turned back on just a short time afterwards. You think Ukraine has some massive leverage on the United States of America that got turned back on? Andreas Northram, why are there no Walmarts in Iran? Because they're all targets. That's a funny joke. Sean Hughes, and by the way, bro, no, I don't think I don't think that you were like throwing shade at me or anything. So yeah, FX, like I don't think you're throwing shade. I'm just throwing things out there. It's because your words, your statements echo that of a lot of people that I've seen. And I
want to circle the wagon here real quick on that thought, that as far as turning off intel information or whatever. So you got to go way back at the start of the war when Elon Musk got involved in the Ukraine thing for some reason. And what happened is Ukraine was blessing him for Starlink, and only through Starlink it was possible for them to target Russia with their artillery, and drones weren't even really being used yet, right? But basically it was giving them an uplink on the battlefield so that they could guide bombs and missiles and things to their targets. And, well, it's obviously, apparently it was superior to anything Russia had. And if you listen to anything recently, it sounds like that's still pretty much the case. But if you remember, for the first few weeks, you know, Elon Musk like, yeah, you're welcome, man. I'm here to save you here, blah, blah, blah. And he got all like real nice to Ukraine, real pro this or that. And I don't know what happened. I don't know if he got bored or what, because, you know, he's got Astro Burgers or whatever it's called. But all of a sudden, he kind of went weird there for a little while. He took this almost like Russian pro stance, which, was he actually pro-Russia? I mean, it's kind of hard to say, right? Because it was like, well, all of a sudden he became the Russian cheerleader, right? But I don't know if you remember this. This is why I'm going back a little bit there and trying to circle the wagons here so that you understand. And because Matt Tario really doesn't make you understand this. He might know, he might not know, right? But what had happened at this point when he started to become pro-Russian, he basically turned the internet off over Ukraine so that Ukraine nor Russia could use it anymore. And, well, and even though he was a part of the administration, when Trump came into office, well, this goes back to Biden, though, nothing to do with Trump specifically, but basically, what Biden did was, he moved some money around, or maybe got congressional approval from Congress. I don't know what happened exactly, but I remember as clear as yesterday as far as what took place, and that was this. What happened was, and this is why I don't know if you realize this or not, was he took he took taxpayer dollars Elon Musk. And what it roughly came out to was the United States Pentagon was willing to pay, I think it was like 60 million a year or 60 million a month or some crazy shit like that. They keep the Starlink on over Ukraine. Well, so anyway, this gets complicated, right? Because SpaceX has military contracts with the United States government, they have a lot of leverage over SpaceX. So I wouldn't be completely honest if I didn't bring that part up. But you see what happened is taxpayer dollars started to pay Elon Musk's private company SpaceX to put Starlink over Ukraine. Well, he turned on the access again, and as soon as he did, Ukraine, good things started to happen for Ukraine again. Good things happen for Russia too, right? When they get their hands on Starlink. But since then, and this has been brought up by Air Power with Alex Hollins, or whatever his name is. He does good work, but he's brought this up since then. Since all this is happening, the United States government has a specific military version of Starlink. It's called something else, but it's still Starlink something, but it's got some other kind of name intertwined in, but I forget exactly what it's called. But to that side of the operation, the government completely has essentially complete control over it. Even if Elon Musk bitches and moans and groans about this or that. So, but that kind of circles the wagon and gives you a little bit of an insight to why that intel was restored. It's because the United States government, as far as I know, it hasn't changed under Donald Trump, is still paying this $60 million a month to provide Ukraine with internet from Starlink. And they've had intel restored ever since.
Made a point a while ago too, like you want to turn off like people from providing you additional support, bite the hand that feeds you. Like continue to bite the hand that feeds you and watch. And I'm not speaking to you, FX. I'm talking like the rest of the liberal pro-Ukraine crowd. It didn't become a liberal agenda. Pro-Ukraine wasn't a freaking, liberal agenda until it got attached to the border bill, and the Democrats started pushing it. Democrats started pushing that because Trump wrote members, like all the freaking members of Congress were like, you pass that border bill, it's a bad deal for America. You're not going to have my support. And everybody didn't vote for it. Now, the Ukraine funding was underneath that. He didn't say, don't send money to Ukraine. He said, don't vote on the border bill because it's bad for America. And ever since then, all of these morons have been eating up and chewing up, and it's not even fair to call them morons, been chewing up Russian mis and disinformation to go after and attack Trump. I ended up talking about this last night. I was out eating with a buddy, and we're talking about Operation SIG, how it's been going on for 50 years and the amount of disinformation that goes over into the Middle East, but also how they've been using information operations for the last freaking 70 years to attack the United States of America. And that stuff gets parroted and it gets echoed. It's freaking nuts to me, man. Tom, no, I don't think it's odd. Just sounds like a failed attempt to blackmail to me, which is par for the course coming from Iran. Exactly, man. Pat Loudon, Iran must have the water. Alex Jones talks about turning the Ayatollah gay. Yeah, so that's the other thing. Trump came out while we're talking about embarrassing enough that the Ayatollah is wounded. Apparently, intelligence suggests that the Ayatollah is gay.
Expect him to. You're dealing with thugs. You're dealing with horrible people. You're dealing with people that are violent and vicious. And that's the leadership and the people right under them, their military or their police. And they've notified everybody and they put out statements that if you protest, you're going to be shot and killed. The protesters have no guns. And I know you're a brave person, but I don't think you'd be protesting. And so I think it's very hard for them to protest. I fully understand it. They said, if you protest...
It's the next complaint that everybody's coming out with. On top of the Ayatollah being gay, which I think is hilarious that we're spreading that rumor. I highly doubt the man's gay. He probably participates on Man Love Thursdays, but that doesn't make him gay. Right, guys? Right? Yeah. Anyways.
Funny thing is, if you heard that from Alex Jones, he's serious about that, because Alex Jones is a fucking idiot, right? So, if Alex Jones said that, you could sure as hell bet $100 that he thinks it's actually true. But remember, supposedly these airstrikes killed his wife and son, the new supreme leaders who I'm speaking of. That wouldn't suggest that he's probably gay. But I will say, all these hardliners, right? From Osama bin Laden to fucking Saddam Hussein, which maybe not as big as a surprise. He was a secular guy. But if you remember right, all these guys, when we raided them, killed them and captured them, and eventually they died or whatever, I would say north of like 75% of them were found with like hardcore pornography inside their encampments. And I mean, just, I don't really know, I don't care to know, but I mean, just over the years, and from talk shows and books and magazines and articles and this and that, that was, you know, to the extent that it could be sourced from the government, some of this shit was, you know, not just a dude and a girl doing it on video. Some of this shit was like incest. Some of this shit was like animals. So, you know, it was a lot of different forms of debauchery, basically. So, you know, maybe he's gay, but it's not likely. That's my point. It's not likely.
Calling him gay and putting out intelligence that he's gay, that's information operations at its freaking finest. Information operations at its finest. But again, the big word shouldn't be that the freaking Ayatollah is gay, in my opinion. It should be that he's wounded and he's in a freaking hospital over in Moscow and that he's not possibly running that country. That would end up taking them down. That would end up pulling them down. All right. Yeah. I can't. I just, with the gayness, I can't. Other big thing that ended up coming out was, what is it, the 31st MEU heading over towards Iran. 2,500 United States Marines.
We've gone way past the part that I was going to mention now, so I'm just going to stop the video. Etario had made this point on a religious point about, you know, 2,000 rugs in the street or where in UK praying. But I want to try to put your minds into the proper mindset, if you will, as far as Christianity goes. And this extends into Islam, okay? Although they share some commonality in terms of history as far as like Abraham and Isaac and things like that, I just want to push back here a little bit, because this is a misunderstanding, biblical misunderstanding, and just like it is in Christianity, it's also probably true in Islam. Okay, which is why you can't, whether you're conservative or liberal. The point here is like, when people always say why this, why that, God this, why did God do this or God do that, right? It becomes a little nutty, because, and I'll tell you why. Here's why. And this is the answer to your why question. If you listen closely, you might understand what I'm saying. People forget the world is a secular world. Was America found on Christian values? Yes. Judeo-Christian values? Very much so. Almost every founding forefather attended a church on Sunday, for example. Regardless of all the other shit you hear. That's just reality. Okay? Same thing in Canada. Same thing in Europe, as far as Christianity goes. Same thing even in Israel, both ancient Israel, modern Israel. Okay? These are secular countries. They are not theocracies. There's a big difference. Why does a person in these countries do this? Or why does a person in these countries do that? Why? You always notice there's a whole fucking lot of whys. But the answer's real simple. You live in a secular country. Israel may be, a segment of Israel, for example, may be Jews who practice Judaism, but those same Judaism practicing Jews will still commit X, Y, and Z. Adultery, fight wars, right? It's because of secularism, which is opposite of godliness. It's the opposite of godliness. By the way, we see this in America all the time. And by extension of being American, I'm sure Canada struggles with the same problem to the extent that you even realize it's a problem. I'm not convinced most people any longer understand that it's a problem. Right? I don't think they simply discern this at all. I don't even think it computes in their mind one single iota. I could be wrong. But I don't think people even compute this into their mind at all anymore, okay? But understand this real quick. Biblically speaking, people are saved through salvation. What does that salvation mean in a very simple understanding? It means that you are covered by the blood of Jesus Christ. It means that you have repented and sought forgiveness of your sin. Now, sin is abundance. I couldn't tell you because everyone suffers with different things. But if we keep to the sort of the regular sin that we think of, just regulars when we think of do's and don'ts, right? It usually basically goes something like this. I have sex with multiple women. I'm an alcoholic. I do drugs. Like, those three things are basically the most common things we think of. But we forget that it extends way beyond just those things. Lying, gossip, stealing, murder. Okay, it goes way, way beyond, even bigger than what I just mentioned. But my point is, the core elements of salvation is that I have repented of my sin and sought for forgiveness. That's the core element. At some point, baptism comes into this, if you believe in it. I think it's important. I don't know if it's required to go to heaven, but I do think it's probably at some point in your life important. And even on that concept, right, there's different thoughts because, well, I don't know. Well, I kind of know, but I don't want to really talk about it. But this is why, guys. This is why. So what I'm saying is, from a very simple, watered-down version without having, 20-hour debates or something on this, the scripture would be basically something like this. A saved person is saved because of the things I mentioned, and by the fact that they've been saved and now they're a new creature in God, as in, it's a lifestyle, right? They've changed from their wicked ways and come into their new ways. Like they've stepped into their new lifestyle, right? The fruit of their spirit. Well, is the fruit rotten or is it good, right? These are the things that make a person saved. These are those things, okay? There's obviously a level of goodness that comes to this. But the point is, there's a lot of good people out there in the world. And, I mean, they're nice people. God, they're very nice people. And we will just universally in our culture say things like, wow, that person is a really nice person. Wow, this person is, really nice, so-and-so, and so on and so forth. And when that person dies, right, the natural synergy of this is that, oh God, they were so good, they must have went to heaven. You never hear anyone die in their family and say, oh yeah, Uncle John didn't make it to heaven. However, you will read plenty of obituaries as far as the point I'm making up, who did not have a church family. They didn't have a church family. Why did they not have a church family? Because they didn't go to church. So when you read in their obituary, where's their funeral at? It's at the funeral home. Because they never had a church body, a home, a place to call their home. The praise and worship. Now, certainly you could be like, well, you can do that in your house. Yeah, you can, but there's a reason why the Bible says don't forsake the assembly. The assembly is the church. So, yeah, I mean, you could be at home. I'm not debating that, but there's a reason why when, 70 or 80% of people in the obituaries nowadays, it's probably not that high, but it's getting bigger with every passing decade. You look and you read, they ain't got a home. Their home is the crematory. It is the funeral home. They don't have pastors. They have feel-good preachers coming, right? So the point is, it's like, in a bigger worldview of understanding this, which is the part of the Great Commission, why we teach in the church the Great Commission, regardless of your background, whether you're a Baptist or Nazarene or whatever, Lutheran, the reason why we teach the concept of the Great Commission is because you are to go throughout the world and spread the word of God to people. But I work in a factory. How can I do it? Well, you present it to your factory workers. And I know you're not a preacher, but at the same time, through example, you're leading the flock to maybe something better. And then maybe they want to get on that train with you. Maybe they don't. But I can honestly tell you, and maybe I'm just a little more bold, I don't know. But every job I've ever had, even though I might act a fool and act like a clown, I've never not actually, to the people who I became closer to and friends with, we never just didn't talk about religion. At some point, I brought it up, and at some point, it was part of our conversations, and to some extent, depending on who you were, it was a regular part of our conversation, right? Because even in my spirit, I was trying to practice out the Great Commission. The reason why I bring the Great Commission up, this is the concept in which you understand the broader view of Christianity, which is, broader view of reality of Christianity, but not necessarily practiced by anyone. And probably because they don't actually any longer know this, right? Because why we're a secular country. Why this concept is so important is we don't generally in Christianity believe good people go to heaven. We believe saved people go to heaven. It's a long way. What I said is a long kind of drawn out way to bring it back to this point. But we don't necessarily believe good people go to heaven. We believe saved people go to heaven. Which is why I was trying to distinguish the difference. Because everybody in God's eye is wicked. And as the Bible says, we've all fallen short of the glory of God. We don't actually deserve heaven. Which is why there's this next step, this more elevated next level, right? In which you move on to this next level of repentance and forgiveness, and it brings you into this new being, this Christian being, the being you weren't before, but you are now. You're a Christian being. The dirty bathwater of life. That water was dirty. You took a bath in it, God, it's so dirty. But now on the other side, you're as white as snow, baby. You're a new human being. And obviously there's some time and maturity that takes place, right? Some people are able to snap their fingers and mature into Christianity really quick. But a lot of people don't. They struggle. And sometimes it's years they struggle. But they're trying to walk into this thing that they've now claimed they are. And it's not easy, but it is doable. There's just a difference. That's why I came back on and shot this last video with Matt Tario, because Matt Tario probably does. He's a new Christian by his own admittance. Okay, not me talking for him. By his own admittance, he is. Okay, he walked into that new creature supposedly too, right? So anyway, I'm just pointing this out because I'm pretty sure, because we're super engraved in secularism today, most people, just broadly speaking, don't understand the bigger universal understanding of salvation, and that, you know, we don't believe the majority of people go to heaven, because we err on this belief that good people is what we think of ourselves, but we're not saved people. I don't have any mathematical number. If you're looking for a mathematical number, I don't know. In my life, just to be kind of cutesy with, I've always said 10%. 10% of what? Well, 10% of the population, maybe. But that's not like any biblical scripture that says 10%. I just like 10% because 10% in the Bible is used a lot. 10% tithing and so on and so forth. It's just a nice number. But it's not a biblical number. But it is a biblical understanding, right? Because we need Jesus Christ to bridge the gap of death. Spiritual death, as in go to hell, right? A lot of people in this world today in America, whether it's because you're gay, whether it's because you're an atheist, whether because of a lot of reasons, they never bridge that gap and find salvation, eternity. And like I said, I come from a Bible college background, but I've struggled even since my own father died. I've actually, I would say, drifted away in a lot of ways, in a lot of respect. And so no, I'm not saying this because I believe I'm a superior human being or perfect. I'm just trying to give you a better, smarter way of thinking about this, a more in-depth way of seeing it. All right, guys, that's all really. Talk to you later. God bless. Bye.